Okay. All right, welcome everyone. The April 28th, 2020 Sodus Town Board meeting is called to order at 5 o'clock. We don't need a roll call. Let's go right to the agenda. We have a resolution authorizing payment of abstract number 8 to pay the bills. I need a motion for that.
This is Chris. I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Chris. Second?
I'll second. Seconds.
Thanks. Who was first? Who'd you get, Lori?
John.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I believe Don is coming on. Connecting to the, he'll be on in a second. All right, number 2. We need a resolution adopting license agreement between the town of Sodus and David Gitsis, owning property located at 7310 Route 14 at Sodus Point. The town grants to Gitsis a temporary license to install the improvements on the town parcel. You guys had the details. Anybody want to talk about it? You guys remember what this is about by the boat ramp?
Right.
That
Yep.
help? Anybody have any discussion on it?
Well, I got a question. What Amy sent out today, and she says that they need to have a new resolution for it. And in that it's a different section of the ramp that she was talking to him about than what was on the, I guess, the surveying map. It looks more like he was more talking about the parking lot area there that looks like, according to the survey, belongs to the town.
Yeah, let me just, if I may, this is Amy. I just so I can clarify, the only thing that's on our plate tonight is the temporary easement to basically restore or replace the break wall, which is in the back of the property. But in email conversations and discussions with Mr. Gitsis, he indicated that he had previous discussions with the previous supervisor about getting an easement in place because he uses, it looks like the driveway right off of Route 14. It looks like, based on the survey, he doesn't actually have a driveway, that he's just been kind of using what's there. So I just wanted to provide that information to you, not for something to vote on tonight. Maybe we could put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And I can, draft up an easement to kind of memorialize that he can use the driveway, but it's not his.
So the question I had about that was originally, and I sent you an email on it also, Amy, so you have some history about it that maybe the others aren't aware of, but I had a friend that lived in that house also that rented from the previous owners. There's actually at least two places there on that one lot, and her parking was in front of that building. So apparently they're pulling in on the south side of the building now. Is that what they're doing?
I believe so, yes.
Yes, John. Yeah, that's correct. Right next to the ramp.
Right
Yeah,
next
right
to the
next
ramp.
to the ramp.
So what it looked to me as though was happening, and if I'm wrong, then I don't have any problem with what the plans are, but it appeared to me as though this was going to be, as we have had it explained, an enhanced break wall, but it also looked like a pad coming out into the driveway of the boat ramp. Am I
No,
misreading?
there's an existing, it looks like, all I have seen is the aerial views, like Google Earth views, which I provided. And it looks like there's a gravel driveway and it kind of goes from his property over onto the town property. And I think, and you guys should definitely go out and check, because I don't know this to be true, but it looks like the driveway kind of spans the two parcels, and then the driveway kind of ends and there's like a grass portion, and that's the towns as well. He's only asking for an easement to use the existing gravel area for parking. So he's not asking for the grass area beyond that, or, closer to the water.
Well, does he need an easement? He's been using it right along.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question.
Well,
If it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
How long do we have a right to pull the easement sometime if we need to, or?
Yeah,
how
no.
long does that
yeah,
run?
well, it might be good to kind of define the terms. Just say he can't expand it, or, what have you, and kind of define the area that can be used. The town, I mean, you can't get adverse possession against a town or a municipality, so I don't think that's the concern. I think it's really for you all to discuss about whether you want to give him an easement, even if it's for a period of time.
I
For
don't,
that.
Amy, my position on this is, if he's been using it right along, if it's not impeding the boat ramp, that we give him some kind of an easement. But if he should sell the house and move out, and then an easement would be null and void, and then we'll deal with it with a new one.
Okay.
my
Well, I can
opinion-
draft something up for you to look at in
Yeah,
advance of the next meeting.
Yeah, we could have
You can
discussion.
decide.
I really think that this thing was presented one way and now it's turned out another. And I'm trying to look at what advantage the town is getting from doing this. And I think that all it's doing is costing us money. And so,
So there's two separate things. The one is the license agreement for the break wall. That's a completely separate issue.
yep,
So that's what we've got in front of us today. That's what we've kind of discussed. And I mean, the town owns the property, but the town signed the permit application to the DEC as owner of the property. So this is just basically allowing him to do the break wall work, with the understanding that he's not going to own it. The town's not going to be liable for anything that happens, going forward on that break wall thing. The separate issue is the driveway, and that we can leave that for a different time
okay,
and, put it on the agenda for the next meeting or what have you.
understood. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Sure,
I
sure.
understand.
Well, Amy, I'll make that motion in regard to the break wall resolution. I mean, I gave you my comment in regard to the legal responsibilities in case somebody got hurt. You made those changes. I'm certainly happy with the way that you had updated it, and I would move it forward.
Okay, so that's our motion. We have a second.
Yes, sir. I'll second that.
Thanks, Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, carried. Number 3. Craig, are you on? Number 3 is discussion with Craig Willison on the State Street, his property on State Street. Is he on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Actually, today, Craig, we went down and looked at it, and I'm going to let Dale explain what we thought we could do and what we may not do. Go ahead, Dale.
Hey, Craig, we went down and looked at that this again today. I'm going to have to get a stakeout on it. I can't find any maps of when they put the basin in there, what they built or anything. We intended on digging that up back in October. I pulled out the stakeout in the end of October. We had it all marked out, and then you notified us that the gas line was marked out wrong. So,
Well, I was just curious if it was correct, that's all.
yeah, well, we have to make that's an important thing. So,
Right.
in between waiting for our G&E again, winter happened. So the best thing I can suggest right now is that we're going to get a stakeout on it, and we'll start digging up the pipe and see what's under there and what the problem is. And we'll just have to follow along, because I think they tied a pipe into the system. Where it is or where it goes, I really don't know.
Well, I'll tell you where it used to go. It used to go from that box in the front yard, that culvert box, whatever you want to call it. And it used to go right over to the drain over by the neighbor's property that runs across the street. Well, when I had that big washout in my front yard a couple of years ago, Bill came in and took that pipe out, never told me that it was even there or that he took it out, filled the hole and left. Well, all the water that's coming down now from back towards Harvest Drive towards me is washing out my front yard because it goes that way and the pipe's not there anymore. So when he put that new pipe in, goes the culvert that runs down the street to alleviate the water problem that we had before he raised the road 1.5 feet or whatever he did. That's only like 12 feet from where that box is. He can go straight into that. My problem's over. I'll fill the front hole in my front yard. That's not a problem. But we got to get, to replace that pipe going from that box to that new culvert that runs across the street would be a whole lot more work and bother than just running it straight from that box into that pipe that they buried a few years ago.
Yeah, like I say, I'm not, I don't know what they hooked up, and we're going to have to unearth it and find it out. And like I say, we'll pretty much take care of everything in the right of way, but I'm not sure if your problem's out of the right of way. So we'll have to address it when we get there. But like I say, I don't know what they hooked up. I don't know what's underneath there, and we'll just have to start digging it up and find out what's under it. If we can improve the water that's going off from Kelly Road onto you, maybe we can shape up the front lawn where it can go into that catch basin where I think it's probably supposed to go, right?
Well, it will. If you take it to that new pipe that he put in, it runs right down the street into that catch basin anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only like a 12-foot distance between that basin and where they put that pipe in that runs that, I don't know. They put a non-corrugated 12-inch pipe with a bunch of washed stone on top of it, which didn't make a lot of sense, but it's there. And I mean, if we just hook into that, then I can fill my front lawn, and that diverts the water going, through my front yard. It goes out towards the street a little bit more, but it's underground. It's 4 foot underground.
Yeah. Well, are you home days now or not?
Yeah, I've been furloughed. I didn't see anybody out there today.
Yeah, we stopped. Scott and I came down and looked at it. As long as you're there, you'll probably, I'll get a stakeout in on it, and I'll see if we can.
The stakeout's still there, and the RG&E guy was here about 2 weeks ago, and he marked the water line again, and he marked, I don't know, that big 811 guy was here.
Yeah, but our stakeout's only good for 10 days. I have to renew it.
Okay.
What he's out there marking right now, it could be for the water authority. I don't know who's marking what.
Okay. Yeah, I just assumed it was a town, but could be.
No, not even. Like I said, I pulled our last stakeout was October 21st, and it was probably the last week of October when they got out there and marked it.
Yeah, it's still there, but.
Yeah, we'll get a fresh stakeout on it, and we'll just have to come out there and dig it up and address the situation, see what we can find.
Okay. All right.
I'll get a stakeout turned in on it yet this week here. So if you see some new flags, make sure the neighbors don't mow them off, will you?
Oh, no, it's all on my property. It's not on their end. So.
Okay. I know a lot of times the people don't know and they pull them out on us.
Oh, I understand.
So we'll get down there and see what we can do.
All right. Yeah, like I say, the shortest route would be just go straight from where that junction box is. That comes from, the Kelly Road area over to the junction box that they put in down the street. It'd be just go straight into that pipe they put in a few years ago when they raised the road.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll.
Because it all ends up in the same place anyway.
Okay. We'll find out when we dig it up.
All right.
Good?
Yep. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
Progress. You're welcome, Craig. All righty. Here's number 3. Now we get to the number 4.
Yay.
I see that. I want to watch for this. Resolution motioning approval of a 30-day liquor license waiver to the Williamson Drift Riders Snowmobile Club, incorporated located at 7639 North Centenary Road, Sodus. Note, Code Enforcement Officer Craig Schwartz stated to Town Clerk Lori Diver that there are no open violations with the club or violations with physical address of property. Any discussion on this? I know that John, that's your club, correct? Or I know you're a member.
Yep, I'm the secretary for the club. And our clubhouse is very near to completion. So we're starting to do our paperwork on setting up to operate the place. And that includes applying for our liquor license. I had reached out to Lori regarding what we needed to do with the town, and she said, well, what you probably want is a waiver on the 30-day notice timeline. So when you want to apply for a liquor license, you have to notify the town. Then you have to wait 30 days to put the application in with the liquor authority so that the town can check out whether you're, whether you're up and.
So you're just asking us to waive that 30-day waiting period?
Yep, that way we can apply as soon as we have the application done.
That's an essential business. I'll make a motion that we do that.
Thanks, Don. I agree completely. Did we get a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thanks, Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And I have to abstain, so I will do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Oh, good luck. We expect an invitation to inspect the place once
We'll
it's.
putting the menu together now.
Okay, thanks. Number 5, motion to rebuild the town highway barn on Rotterdam Road and not on Allen Road. I know there's people want to speak to this, so Don, you want to go first? I think you're the Allen Road guy, maybe.
Well, I guess,
You have.
did we end up with a cost difference between the two that you would know, or was it just, we need to put gravel in and we need to do this or that?
Well, they didn't put it down to a number because you would have had to contact all the utilities and everything, and I don't know a lot about that. Yeah, you can speak more to that, couldn't you, with all the.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that came into play was our utilities. We have fiber optic within 60 feet front of the building. We have cable. We have 3-phase electric. We've got a natural gas main. We've got a sanitary sewer, which we have to build a holding tank for the facility of the barn, not alone just the bathrooms. And one of the biggest things is we have a water main that right in front of our building that supplies the whole town tower up on Greens Hill. A couple of the big problems they had with getting water out on Allen Road is putting a well in. And the big problem with that is possible methane gas, radon, and especially we're building it in a landfill that was in a gravel pit. So there could be a fair amount of leach moving underneath that. And the biggest problem with the water is if we decide that we can afford to put a sprinkler system in the barn, we don't have any water to feed it. So the main thing, it looked like if you had to do a rough estimate and you had to build a septic system out on Allen Road to fit a municipal facility, you're probably looking at pretty much most of these utilities going to cost you $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably going to end up having to heat your building with propane instead of natural gas, which could present other problems with supply and stuff, And I think the biggest reason is that we don't have any utilities out there, and then we have to deal with whatever is underneath the capped off landfill. So that's pretty much, I think, what came into play. I think there was so much involved over there compared to there that they didn't do a cost comparison, but it's just a total lack of and possible contaminated water, or if you build there, we might have to, they monitor the wells regularly, every year and that, but any facility you build over there might have to be vented for the life of the structure also. That's about all I got, unless you got a question.
Anybody else?
No, cost-wise, one of my concerns is it's costing us quite a bit already. Close to $2 million to build it. Well, some of it is insurance, but most of it, 3/4 of it, is definitely from our money. The other thing is in the resolution is the cost of the bond counsel in part of this total amount? Or is the bond counsel separate yet? Because I know they take a pretty good chunk.
I don't know.
Saw
Can you
Amy
explain
nodding
your-
her head.
Usually, all
Yeah,
the
go ahead, Amy.
sorry, usually all the costs associated with bonding and all of that are wrapped into the bond. So the price for, or the cost for Bernie Donegan, or, like, I haven't seen it, but that's usually what happens. And the cost for bond counsel, well, I guess you can decide. I mean, we could do that ourselves. You could go with Tim. As far, I don't know what your engagement has been with Tim McGill, because
A
he
lot.
sometimes does that. I don't know if he just prepared the resolution or is going to do the document.
We've done, all our water districts have been with Tim McGill's office.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had a lot of involvement with them.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, I believe that his costs are wrapped into the bond.
I think so too, off the top of my head.
I agree with you guys.
Okay.
One thing about the bond, since it was mentioned, we're going to vote on that tonight, aren't we?
Yes. Yep.
We have well over $1 million in our emergency general fund. And so, I mean, I'm sure there's interest attached to this bond.
Right.
Why don't we borrow some of the money of our own money? And I mean, probably can't cover it all, but we certainly, I mean, we should at least look at it, how much we could save by using some of that money and not borrowing all of it.
Oh, I
Is it
agree.
in a capital account?
In the general
No,
fund.
it's not set up in a capital account now.
So I mean, that's definitely one of the areas we can get some money from. But if you listen to our governor, we're gonna be short on money coming to us. Hopefully that'll be taken care of, but it might be good that we have some in the reserve fund with sales tax and everything being lower and all that. But that certainly we can use some of the general fund to help keep the interest portion down. Right now, you're not gonna be able to borrow money any cheaper than we can at this
Right.
moment.
That's a good point.
We just borrowed some, I think we just voted on a bond. I was on a meeting prior to this for the water authority, and I think it was, you send the bids out, I think it was like 1.34% or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Almost free.
Yeah, that's the cheapest you'll get it. So again, you know, I'd like to avoid the $2 million number if at all possible. I mean, we did the range from 1.2 to 1.6. And then we have the, you know, the engineer costs and some other stuff in there, but I'm hoping that it comes in a little closer to 1.2 than 1.6.
yeah.
So we have the 400,000 from insurance. I'm still banging on Senator Helming and Assemblyman Brian Mankelo's doors. They said they'll see what they could do to help with the state budget and mayor, who knows, but you know, so yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to borrow the whole amount either. I don't mind dipping into the general fund for a certain amount, especially once we get a little better vision on what may be coming from the state and where our finances are headed.
Being relatively new to all of this, I mean, what's a typical general fund balance that the town of Sodus has carried, has needed to dip into? I mean, if it's $1 million now, is that a lot of money typically, or is that short? I mean, I'm just asking for your input on that. I have no idea.
About average.
About what we carry.
Is
Yeah.
that about what we have, Bree, is $1 million?
In just general or all funds combined?
Well, because we can't touch some of them.
Right. So in just general, yeah, it's a little over $1 million.
Okay.
And in my time here, we haven't had to dip into what we call fund balance, but it's been done in many towns, and there's a first time for everything, but
Yeah, I mean, and with my history at the school, I mean, we had a $5 to $6 million general fund balance, but we had a $28 million budget. So it's about 25%. And I think that with having $1 million with the town, that we have a $3 to $4 million budget that's about the same. So
Okay. All right.
I'd
That's
hate to hit it too hard.
Well,
I just
Don't-
borrow the money, and if we can pay it back faster, I'm all for saving interest, but I hate to.
don't forget to take into consideration that we're not done fixing the fleet of trucks yet. We don't know exactly where we're going to end up. And we might have to dip into a fund to square that up. So we don't have a finished number between what we need and what the insurance is going to give us right now either.
No, that's correct. Again, the last couple of days have been jumping around with the insurance company. One guy makes it sound horrible, and then today it was a little better call, and we were going to be a little better off. But if we keep Dale replacing trucks with the way he did with that one we just bought, we'll be in good shape because, we ended up on about a plus $20,000 on that side. So, we have a couple more yet to file for. Those 3 that are replacement costs, they are sending some money, the ACV on it right now, and then they're going to settle up with us when they either accept or give us a number on what they feel the replacement of those trucks will be. And then we have the 2009 and 2010 that to square up with them on so far. But those are the couple that we'll have to still yet replace. The 11, 14, and 16 are being replaced by new trucks that we have ordered. We replaced one of the 08s with a 13 at $60,000. So that was a great buy. Once again, I'll thank Dale for that.
Yeah, we brought that home yesterday morning. I drove it all the way back and got a couple little things to fix. I'm gonna have the brakes checked on it, not to interrupt you, but I think it looks like it's gonna be a good truck for us.
Yep, I went down and looked at it today. It's not my forte, but it was really nice. So I'm real happy about that.
So we're voting on the bond tonight. Do we have to decide on an exact amount or just that we're going to move on it?
We'll get to that down.
Okay.
Let's finish up number 5. Don, do you want to talk any more about Allen and Rotterdam or?
No, I think I probably beat that subject to death there, so.
Okay, no, I understand. But that's why I wanted to hear about it. I don't know much of either way. So, okay. Can I get a motion to accept number 5 to rebuild the highway barn on Rotterdam and not Allen?
John Fox will make that motion.
Thanks, John. Second.
I'll second it, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yep. Yeah, and we're moving along with that, which is good. Now I'm gonna get long-winded, but I'm not gonna. But we're getting our tear-off thing started here, so that's coming here soon too. Number 6, a resolution accepting and adopting proposal for architectural and engineering services replacement of the Sodus Highway Garage on Rotterdam Road. Did everybody get that proposal I forwarded from
Yes.
Labella?
Yes.
Now, we had a meeting, or I had a meeting with them the other day with Dale and Dave, and they were really good about, that's the top dollar amount. We already knocked some of that off with the seeker and a couple things that they didn't really need to do. And what I've gathered in my 4 or 5 meetings with them is that they're a pretty honest bunch, and they're not going to try to knock us through the loop. So the 120 is kind of the top amount, and I think that's down to 117 now with the seeker out of it, or 16.5. But not every, those are all, I guess, cautionary costs or type of thing. And I'm not saying it's going to come in under that, just that I have a decent feeling about them and what they're doing for us. So I'd like to see it accepted, but.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks, Dave. You get a second?
I'll second it. Looks like you addressed some of my concerns with them already. Yep.
Yeah, we did. We went over those that you had. That was very good. Your concerns were great, Chris. Thanks. Second, Chris, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. On to number 7. Resolution approving town's consultant on the highway barn, Labella Associates, PC, together with the town supervisor, town highway superintendent, and town attorney, shall prepare a request for a proposal for the work, and Labella shall submit such request to local demolition service providers for highway barn roof, making clear that qualifications must be provided with the quotations, prevailing wage requirements must be met, and that the town will comply with its best value pricing law. This is the part where we're peeling the roof,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yes.
So that's our, what we're putting out for bid is just to peel back the roof so that Dale can get at the remaining trucks in there and pull out what he can and tools and all that stuff and get it ready for demolition. This has nothing to do with the demolition itself, except that it's getting the roof that's caved in on 3 or 4 of the trucks, at least 3 that are remaining there, and getting that pulled off. So I need a motion to.
Can I just,
Oh,
well,
absolutely.
can I just make a comment?
Yep.
Sorry. So we've been going back and forth with Labella to figure out the process for this kind of minor a part of the whole project. And I think it based on the procurement policy of the town, you don't need to go out to formal bid for this because we anticipate that it'll be less than $20,000. So today I've worked up a draft that I hope to have to everyone in the next couple of days, kind of outlining the scope of the work.
Oh, okay.
For Labella had provided a bid package, which will be
40 some
required
page.
for the construction. I mean, that's coming. It was a lot. So I'm trying to do something that's a lot more condensed, based on the size of the scope of the work. And I have that almost done. I'm gonna run it by my partner, Alan, and get it out to you as soon as possible.
Great. So once we have that, we can take that to local contractors or whatever and say, here's what we need done. We don't have to wait for a certain amount of period, or we can just accept when we get something that we think is acceptable, we can move forward.
Yeah, and I've kind of laid out the requirements, which are like, you have to provide a statement of qualifications. You have to show that you're authorized to do business in New York. You're going to have to sign a contract. Here's a form of the contract. Sign, you have to provide, demonstrate that you can provide insurance, all of those things. But it's really, at this point, it's a 2-page letter. So it'll have the attachments, which are like the aerial views. It'll have like a non-collusion form, and then it'll have a draft contract, which will be maybe 5.
This was Labella's.
Yeah. And that's honestly, that's what you can expect when you go to construct
I understand.
the new barn. But
Pull the roof off. We don't
this
need
is a smaller project. I don't think we need to.
Okay, then once we get that, we'll move on that and see what we can find out. Great. So what do we do with number 7 then? We don't need to do anything with that, correct? Is that the part about the roof?
Yeah.
Can I cut in for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah, you guys are probably going to have a little time to work on that. I was saving this for the end, but I'm hooking up with Labella tomorrow morning, and their demo survey person is coming out, and he's going to go through and look for possible materials that need to be treated that way during demolition. And the only thing that's going to change your roof outlook is this: if there was a hazardous condition on the roof, such as asbestos, when they pull that roof off, they would have to follow the guidelines, like spraying a foam or water on it so it didn't move through the air. So we're probably going to have to wait for the survey to come back from Labella, and we're trying to get it done ASAP, because otherwise they aren't going to be able to give you a true quote on what they have to remove. Other than that, it's just picking the tin off the trucks and stacking it in the yard behind them. But if a chemical comes into play, that could change things a little.
Okay, so I would recommend holding off on number 7
Okay, we'll table.
at this point, because if it goes over $20,000, if there's a hazardous material involved, it very well may. So, in that case, a formal bid would be
So
required.
we'll wait till after we get that study.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't think the study's going to take very long. You never know what to expect, but he's going to start on it tomorrow, and they do a lot of their own investigation of the stuff they find in-house. So I think they know that we're looking to the timeline here, but they still are going to do it safe and legal.
sure.
Dale, what's the plan for the removal, disposal of the roof material? You said you were gonna stack it over the side. Is that something we should have the contractor take care of, or is that material you want to keep?
No, we don't need to keep it. It's most of it's just bent sheet metal and stuff. It just might be cheaper to have it if there's no contamination on the roof, which I don't expect there is. It might just be cheaper to put it in a pile, and when the guy comes in, whoever gets the demo bid for the whole building, just take care of the whole
Take that.
process.
All in one, yeah.
Yeah, because on the east end of the building, if you guys remember, after the fire, we had to take all those sheets of steel out of the driveway and pile them so we could plow and sand for the rest of the winter. And so there's quite a bit in the stockpile down there. There's probably a couple dumpsters worth anyways.
Okay,
Just we don't know if there's something in there, and it's not a good thing to move it if it hasn't been inspected.
all righty, good. I'd just like to say I'm glad that we're finally moving along with this project. I mean, just getting it cleaned up will be a huge psychological lift and progress.
4 months.
Yes, it's crazy. All right, number 8, motion adopting bond resolution authorizing general obligation serial bonds to finance certain capital improvements consisting of construction of a new highway garage facility, authorizing the issuance of bond anticipation notes in contemplation thereof, the expenditure of sums of such purpose, and determining other matters in connection therewith. Everybody understand that one? That one's kind of, that's so we can move forward, I believe, getting the bonding and
Right, without exactly saying what we're gonna do.
right.
It's the bond resolution, you guys, that I emailed you. That
Yeah.
tells you everything.
All right, any discussion?
Well, I'll just come back. Do we, and I apologize for my rookie nature here, but is there anything we need to do as far as exact numbers, or is this just a resolution that we're going to go ahead and do this and we'll figure it out later?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's fine with me.
Okay, can I get a motion to?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, John. Second.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Don. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, number 9, motion allowing Lori Diver to advertise bond resolution and estoppel notices required to be published in connection therewith.
We'll make that motion.
Thank you, Dave. Second.
I'll second that, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Opposed? Carried. Motion number 10, I'm sorry. Motion allowing Lori Diver to advertise permissive referendum notice to the Times of Wayne County newspaper.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, John. Second.
I'll second.
Okay. Who was that? Don?
It's Chris.
Oh, Chris? Okay.
Whoever.
Lori knows.
No, that has to be out, but for 30 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, that's our agenda. Anyone else have anything they'd like to?
I do. I got a couple of things. They just keep you guys up on the, just FYIs, kind of.
Yep.
Ridge Road down by the old Normandy restaurant down there by Creekside Circle. Wayne County owns that bridge in there. Ridge Road's going to be closed starting May 11th, and it's going to be that way till mid-October.
Yeah.
Oh,
So It's a big bridge. It's kind of the walls are kind of high on it and stuff, and they've got a lot of work on it. CP Ward was awarded the bid, and they're a great company. I think they've got a lot of experience, a lot of equipment, but it's still quite involved. It's got a water main bolted on the side of the bridge and everything. So just to give you a head up, that's a Wayne County project. If people ask you what's going on, they say middle of May to middle of October. And
Neil, where is that again?
it's the
Past
bridge
the
right
Normandy
next to Mary Jane's there, just by Creekside Circle.
Okay.
What's the planned detour, Dale? Do you know?
Yeah, they're going to go around by the salt box. It's going to probably go around 104 to Barkley
Okay.
and back around there. So it could be a little congested at times. Hopefully the trucks will get adjusted to it. There wouldn't be a lot of Apple trucks and stuff, but maybe they'll get adjusted to it and stay on 104 for a bit.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
No, Dale, if there's any chance, they'll get the state to, where they added people coming up to that corner to cut back the trees a little bit to the east when you're sitting at Barkley.
Can't see.
You know, and they come flying around that corner only because I go down Barkley quite a bit. And if they could shave those back, it might be a little bit.
Right at 104 in Barkley?
Yeah, you know, if you look to the east, when you're sitting headed south, there's some trees and shrubs that just kind of make it tough to see a car coming that way, and they're usually coming about 60, 65. So
yeah, well, I'll pass that along.
I appreciate it. You know, it's a state deal, but
Yeah, Dale. Yeah. We might want to consider or have the Wayne County or the state look at additional signage along both Barkley and 104, because there's going to be including myself, there's going to be a lot of traffic back and forth.
Well, what'll happen is, that signage, sometimes the county will install it, but since it's a private contractor, he's probably hired a sign company. There's one out of Buffalo. I can't remember the name of it. A lot of that they hire out, and there'll be plenty of detours and warnings and everything else. They'll do a good job because it's next to a state highway.
All right.
A lot of traffic. Couple other things. I just told you that Love Bella's coming out tomorrow morning. We're going to survey the materials in the building. I talked to Paul Janik. Paul Janik is the salvage guy that we went through and we inventoried the contents of the building, whether they needed to be cleaned, whether they needed to be replaced, thrown away, or whatever. We did the front half of the building back in probably January. He gave us 3 pages of materials that need to be dealt with. I talked to him a little while ago, and I think that him and I safely can, I've looked around the barn. So we had a little change down there over the weekend, but I looked around the barn, and I think we safely can go ahead and do that without taking the roof off. So if he gets a chance this week or next, we're going to hook up and see if we can get that accomplished and get that part done.
Beautiful.
But we still need to have the guys take the roof off so we can get the trucks out of there and whatever tools we need to move. But I think we can safely maneuver in the barn because there's a 3 trucks that are holding the roof up, but I'm not too worried about it. So we're going to work that in as we go. El Barino is the head inspector for NEFCO, the company that our insurance company has doing the investigation. He sent me a text here earlier that he's going to send our attorney's office a letter releasing the barn to us, and the investigation will be somewhat over. And other than that, we've got that new truck home. If you guys want to see it, it's down the driveway. It's bright yellow. Title should be here tomorrow, and if we can get her, I'm going to take it to the garage and get the brakes and everything set on. I think it might need a brake job on it, but that'll just come out of our normal budget. But other than that, I don't have too much, but we're getting to where we ought to be.
You pulled that one truck out and wrapped it up, right? The one?
No, that's the insurance company wrapped it up, and we pulled it out after they wrapped it with his supervision. And we've pushed it in the pole barn for right now, not knowing whether it needs to leave. But the reason I did that was because it's going to speed up this process by at least a couple weeks. If they had to secure a place to put it, and the whole thing is it's seal wrapped and it's got a fence around it. So not too concerned about it right now. But we got the barn opened up where we can get in there and maybe make some headway here.
Oh, we got the truck just in time for the snow, huh?
One more,
Yeah,
Chris,
right?
but I got to find 2 more yet.
2 more.
Okay.
Dale, I have just a quick question. I've had some people poke at me about the condition of Route 104 and these potholes that are really starting to develop. And I know it's a state road, and I just don't know what to tell folks when they ask me about that. So can you fill me in on how that's all going to get
We
taken
just
care
talked
of?
about that today, Dale. Feels good.
Yeah, actually, the state sent me a letter, and we'll go to the small side first. There's going to be some company named Soup Coat is going to come in, and they're going to start at Rotterdam Road, and they're going to go all the way down to 104A where the 104 store is. And Soup Coat is going to come through, and they're going to do some repair work where there's major potholes and stuff in that section. And they're going to come back through, and they're going to micro pave that road. And what it'll do to give it a new surface to run on and kind of seal it up for winter. The other section where the holes are worse to the west, I don't remember the road if it's up to the county line or where they're starting, but they're going to come all the way back to Rotterdam. And I expect that they're going to grind some of that surface out of there and probably do a pavement treatment like they did on Route 88 last year. But one of the problems they have, I can find out stuff from the local guys, but the local bosses and stuff get their orders small, and things change, and sometimes they can't work on. Last year they had to drop stuff. If you remember, they ground Route 88 out from north to Sodus, and then it was that way for a month and a half or so because they had to go work on sandbags, not just for Sodus Point, but the whole bottom of Lake Ontario. So from Sodus west is supposed to get repaved, and from the other way, it's going to get a micro pave all the way to 104A. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much. That's good.
You're welcome.
On the Beechwood front, we caught a couple more groups. One of them was 4 girls from Rochester, and they're coming down to repaint some of the stuff that they did. We call them just painting. I mean, they were very upset and sincere in their apology, and are going to cover up some of what they did. Actually, one of them was crying, and they were really, really upset, thinking they were going to be in big trouble. Again, we're not trying to have people arrested. We're just trying to end the vandalism. So Sal's doing a good job down there. He's patrolling it quite often. He's actually cutting around the pool, making that look nice, and throwing the pricker bushes and stuff in the shallow end of the pool. So if they care to jump in and do a little graffiti, they can have a little surprise when they hit the ground. But
There's one camera shot of a guy right in the middle of all that stuff. That could not have been a good
they could
situation.
not felt good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's cut all that down. I think that's going to help because people can see in there now. There's no.
Yeah, and
You
the
know, there's
cameras again. We have
not
more
hidden in there.
cameras up, and that word is getting around. I stated before, but I think it's over 77,000 people that I reached by upsetting a couple people in Webster. But that post I think worked pretty good. So
Yep.
we're gonna keep doing it because that's a goal of mine is getting that back to where it belongs. So. We've had many people reach out that will be more than happy to help. And the first thing we've got to do is stop the vandalism. And then there's a lot of people that will donate time, money, and everything else to rebuilding things there. So we're working on that. Anything else? You good?
Good for me.
Okay. Can you get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Don.
Second, John.
Second, John. Thanks, John. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, carried. We'll see you all next time.
Yep.
Have a good
Okay,
night.
Nicely
go.
done.
so you don't spread the virus, don't breathe.
Wiener Schnitzel.
Yeah. Schnitzel to you too.
All right, have a good night.
Night,
Right.
guys.
Nice.
Good night.